Hello, friends, and welcome to the Conservative Poet with me, Amania. I'm super excited for this conversation today. He is my second person that I'm interviewing who has been released and pardoned, who's no longer suffering with January 6th stigma. So his name is John, and I'm super excited that we're going to have this conversation. We met recently at an event, and I thought, okay, I would love to have you on just to talk a little bit about your experience as a January 6er and everything that you went through, how that go on January 6th and so on. So John is a patriot, right? Obviously. And he was also pardoned by President Trump for his involvement in January 6th. John Nassif, Nassif, was convicted on 4 misdemeanor charges. Wow. He was convicted 4 misdemeanor charges on the event, and he was sentenced to 7 months in prison. Wow. Okay. Wow. Anyway, we're going to bring John on and he can tell us a little bit more. All right, John, I'm going to put you on. Hi. Welcome to the Conservative Poet. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Okay, good. I'm glad to have you. As I was saying earlier, you're my second person that I'm having conversations with from the whole January experience. The folks that I had on before, it was a husband and wife. The husband was they both were there that day, but the husband was the one who suffered and went into the prison. But she suffered as well because she had the children she had to take care of and had to figure out how to take care of herself and so on. But for you, John, tell us, what was it like? What happened that day for you, and how did it all happen for you?
Well, we were up early in the morning before the sun even came up, so we could get a good spot in front of the ellipse and watch President Trump's speech. There was well over that. One thing that the media doesn't talk about, there's over 1 million people there. Anybody in your listening audience who has ever been to a Trump rally and knows what that, positive love atmosphere that you get with 10,000 people, take that and imagine 1 million, 1.5 million people. It really was, until all of this craziness that you see on the TV happened and stuff. It was really a beautiful day. I was there with 3 other friends. At the end of the speech, we're going to go down to the Capitol. Of course, the actual point of us being there wasn't to overthrow the government or stop the counting. It was quite the opposite. We wanted the process to continue because of the amount of fraud that was seen, and we wanted the Constitution to be followed so that those electors that were thrown into question would get thrown back to the state legislatures as the Congress, as the Constitution dictates. And so we were looking for it to continue. The fact that that mess happened, I'll say Fedsurrection, that fake, event, that worked counter to what our objectives were. And all you have to do is know that to know that it wasn't something instigated or done by us. So anyways, my 3 friends, we went to Soldiers Field. It was about a quarter mile away from the Capitol, and we kind of hung out there. We didn't want to go all the way to the Capitol. We figured this is close enough. We were tired. We've been up since like 5 a.m. It's January. It's freezing out, and we're from Florida, so we're not acclimated or anything. Anyways, they wanted to go back. Well, we were all going to go back, so we started walking back to the hotel. Along the way, we started hearing that something was going on. People were going in the Capitol, whatever, and everything. And curious as a cat, I wanted to know what was going on. I asked my friends. I said, "Hey, you guys going to go?" No, they didn't want to. So I walked them back to the hotel, make sure that they got safely back because there was 2 ladies in the group, and I decided, well, I'll go and I'll see what's going on because I didn't want to trust what the media was going to say. Right? I'm here, right? I can walk down there and go see what's going on. So that's what I did. There was no fences. There was no signs. There was no cops telling you can't go here. There's people hanging out on the lawn like it was a Sunday afternoon in Portland, Maine, it was like a Norman Rockwell kind of painting,
Mhm.
Anyways, I'm just following people along, milling, a lot of people are just kind of hanging out, prayer
Yeah.
groups, whatever. You can't see any, there's no violence going on. I didn't see any of that. I went up on the east side. The majority of the videos you see are on the west side.
Mhm.
I came up on the east side. I didn't even know that you could go in on the west side. I thought you had to come in through the east. Anyways, I walked past, I don't know, 20 cops, all milling around, hanging out, hey, no one's saying, hey, sir, you don't belong here. This is an illegal, meeting. You have to leave, blah, blah, blah. There's no announcements like that. Keep in mind, DC has a very robust PA system. If they wanted to announce to the people, hey, you need to move, they have the ability to do that. None of that
Mhm.
happened.
No.
So I go up the stairs to the east side, and I get up to the doors. Now I can see somebody broke some windows. I don't know who broke some windows. I don't know what the circumstances of it were. And I asked somebody in the crowd, I said, what's going on? What happened? And they said some Antifa people. And there's people going in and out of the building. And I'm like, they're letting people in?
Mm.
And they were like, yeah, if you want to. And I was like, oh, no, I've got no interest in that. But I did want to film what was going on because I figured the people who did whatever the damage was, right, were going to get arrested and maybe get a shot of them or something. So I'm standing up at the door, and at one point, some guy tries leading one of those, whose house, our house kind of chants, and he did terrible. And so I thought, hey, I can do better than that. So I did it, and I ended up getting a big crowd doing it with me. I bring that up only because that got used against me in trial, believe it or not. That somehow I was some kind of mastermind, whose house, our house kind of a thing.
Do it for me. Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house? Our house.
It's all in the timing, right? You have to get it right back after it,
Yeah.
Anyways, at one point, I'm standing there, trying to film, and the doors are massive. I don't know if you ever seen the doors on the east side.
Oh, I saw it.
Oh yeah. They're absolutely massive. And they can't be opened, by the way, by human beings, right? You'd have to have a tank to rip that open because there's a mag lock that locks that door. Anyways, I'm standing in the doorway. Next thing I know, I'm getting pushed into the building. And I'm desperately clinging onto the door, trying not to. I'm a big guy, you can't tell, but I'm 6'4", and I won't tell you how much I weigh because I got out of prison and started eating ice cream.
Boy.
I get pushed into the building, but unbeknownst to me, right? It wasn't until I got my discovery with my, all the evidence they had against me, that I got to see the security video. And that's when I learned who pushed me in. It was 5 police officers.
Oh, the police were pushing you in.
5 police officers came from outside up the stairs from behind me, completely in my my 180. I can't see them at all. Next thing I know, I'm getting pushed into the building. I'm desperately holding on. And the video even shows that one of the police officers wrapped his arms around my torso to pull me off of the door. The prosecution was like, oh no, that was Mr. Nassif trying to force his way into that stack of officers that he couldn't have seen because they were behind him. He was just trying to get into the building or whatever. And you can see that I got spun around, and it was ridiculous. It was all, I knew that was going to happen though. The moment I heard that the FBI had been by to my house, I knew I was going to get arrested. I knew I was going to get charged. And I knew I was going to go to prison. I knew that right from the get-go.
Wow.
I knew they were going to try and get me to take a plea deal. And that was just not going to happen. They asked me 3 times, actually. They came to me 3 times trying to get me to plea. I wish my brothers and sisters who have gone through this, and I understand their decision, why they didn't. But in the beginning, I was really heartbroken that so many people were taking the plea deals and not fighting. You know? Yeah, but I understand why people make those decisions.
Yeah.
Anyways, FBI shows up at my house early in the morning, surrounded with a whole SWAT team. Thankfully, just because of where I live, and my door opens out, it doesn't open in, so they couldn't have busted it in even if they wanted to. But I got a phone call. I had to come out, surrender myself, all that. And then it was
so they showed up like with intimidation tactics, a whole bunch of them.
Oh, I had a SWAT team surround my house. Yeah. I've got a picture of me when I was being arrested. I'll have to send it to you so you can see it. I had a neighbor who was trying to talk to me at the time, and I had to tell him to step off because I was trying to remain silent. I was trying to, not talk to the officers or whatever, and he wouldn't stop yapping. So I said, "Hey, you got to step away." I said, "Before you go, though, take a picture. It's not every day you get arrested by the FBI." I don't know if this will show up if I do this. Let's see. That's me being arrested.
Yeah, I see it well. There you are.
There's the FBI guys.
Wow.
The SWAT team is out of frame on that. But anyways, then I found out during discovery it was my sister, my baby sister, who called and turned me into the FBI.
Wow.
I love her. I forgive her. It's not her fault that she is so lost. And that's the best way I can find to describe it, right? But pray for her. Her name's Pauline.
Pauline, we're definitely going to pray for her. Wow, she turned you in. She called them on you.
She called the FBI on me, yeah.
Wow. And,
so,
and for her, they probably would have found out sooner
I'm sure eventually they would have tracked the mastermind of the our house chance, so they would have had to track me down.
She just got you in beforehand because they would have probably eventually find you.
Right.
But we'll still pray for her.
Yes, please do. All of them that are so asleep and filled with so much darkness and rage, and please pray for them all, because they're as much victims as they are participants. It's real sad to watch. So I'm definitely in agreement
that when we see some of these people, they are lost. And I mean, for me, they are just the spirits. Because again, this is where we're fighting. We're fighting against demons and spirits. And that's what's taken over people, their minds, their actions. When you see them the way they are, they're so emotional, invested. And I mean, they're out of control. But again, it is the demons that has really literally possessed these people for them to be the way they are. But go ahead.
They're consumed with fear. They're consumed with fear, So I get where they're coming from. It's unfortunate. They were trying to get me for 3 years. My attorney, public defender, did a good job. I wouldn't give him a 10. I bet he's a great guy. I love the guy. He's a really good guy. I think we could have done better if we had done a couple of things that we had originally planned on. But trials have things that happen, and you have to adjust to it or whatever. So, anyways, but I would have still gotten a guilty plea. I didn't do a jury trial. I did what's called a bench trial. I knew for a fact there was no way I was going to get an unbiased jury. So I thought I had better odds of finding a judge that had some moorings, to the Constitution and the law. Fat chance. My judge, John Bates, same judge that recently did an injunction against President Trump. So he's he's part of that whole DC cabal of people who are just trying to, keep the status quo. So, that tells me that the guy's got to be corrupt. I hope they investigate all the ties to these people. So prison happened. I had a self-report to United States Penitentiary up in Atlanta, second oldest prison in the United States, next to Leavenworth. And the facilities were like the oldest facilities that you would expect. So I learned a lot in prison. I think the thing that probably caught you the most in my talk that from the group we were at was when I explained, because I know people always think I'm joshing, but it's true. But I had a lot of fun in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about the fun that you had in prison.
Well, as you can tell, I'm a musician. This is kind of my office / music room. Anyways, I played in 4 bands while I was in there. Prison is very segregated by race. To give you an example, the TV system, right? So like the largest commanding group in that prison are the Mexicans and the cartel people, right? They're in control.
They're in charge.
They're the majority of the people in there. So of the 5 televisions we had on our floor that we could watch, 3 of them belonged to the Mexicans. The next largest group were the black people, and they got 2. And then white people either watched Mexican soap operas, BET, or a soccer game. I mean, that was pretty much all those on TV all day long, right? So so things are structured like that, right? And but what I'm real thankful for that. Now, I've never been in prison before. I've never been in trouble with the law in my life, with the exception of a speeding ticket and driving on a suspended license once because I guess my license got suspended. I didn't know about it, anyways.
Yeah.
So I've never been wanted by the law. I've never been all that kind of crazy stuff that they try and make us do.
What do they call you when you go in? Fish, right? People like you who's never been in prison. Isn't that?
Oh yeah. They have a nickname. No, they didn't. No, nobody really had any names like that. I will tell you, the people who caused the most fear and trepidation, especially in the early days, first going in, were the cops, the guards, not the inmates. There's some very simple rules in prison that I learned, and it's should be rules of life, in and out of prison. Quite frankly, prison was a very liberating environment because everybody is very true to themselves and upfront, and there's no second guessing where somebody's coming from. They're very direct, right? But it's very refreshing, I have to be honest. But don't be a backstabber, don't be a liar, don't be a cheater, don't be a rat. There's usually some more colorful language I'd use to describe that, but if and be respectful of people's personal space. If you do those things in prison, prison's not hard. Don't hang out with drug addicts. Don't hang out with chomos, that's child molesters or sex offenders. You do those things, and you be true to yourself and be an honorable person, and people will respect you greatly for that. And as a result, I was able to, because that's how I approach people in general, right? That whole identity crap is nothing I've ever identified with since being a small child. I've never really got it, so it's foreign to me. So when I went to prison, I'm hanging out with these guys and those guys, and so I ended up being the drummer for the white guy band. I played a little piano and drums for the Mexican, one of the Mexican bands. There were like 3 or 4 different Mexican groups. And then the black group, which was the R&B group, I ended up being the lead singer for them. That was awesome. That doesn't happen in prison very often. So that was a blast. And then I was in church choir too, which was fascinating because, there were some people in there who grew up in the church. They were inmates and they'd been in for a while, whatever. But they grew up in the church, and so they had really great choral training and harmonizing and all this kind of stuff. Just from a musician standpoint, it was very educational in many days. And I made so many friends when I was in there. It was hard leaving prison. I lost a lot of weight. I was joking with the guards, like, hey, can I stay for an extra month? I want to lose another 10 pounds. What do I got to do for you to throw me in the shoe? So that's solitary confinement, so that I can lose an extra 5 pounds before my release date. I'd be joking like that all the time. listen, you know, I've talked to several people in the past and everything. I know a lot of my fellow J6ers they're angry, they're upset, they're frustrated,
Right.
they're suffering from PTSD. There's guys who suffered a lot worse stuff than I did, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of people who, quite frankly, didn't suffer much at all because they took a plea deal and maybe they had some probation, you know.
Mhm.
So I'm not trying to, single myself out or anything like that or say anything negative about anybody. When I say this, I'm just saying that life is what you make it. I had the fortunate opportunity, we'll call it fortunate, to have politics destroy every relationship in my life
Yeah.
before January 6th happened.
Before January 6th.
Before January 6th happened. Yeah. It cost me my children. My boys don't talk. I have 4 kids. They won't speak to me.
None of them talk. They're liberals, all of them liberals?
I that's not the way I raised them, but yeah, I lost.
Wow.
I lost to the media. Yeah, so much so that they had to invent, some outrage. So they actually called me a child abuser because when my youngest son was 10, I smushed what do you call it? Some food in his face, right? He was being a picky eater, he was being a pain in the ass. And I got frustrated, so I smushed it in his face, right? And apparently my children don't know what real child abuse is. I grew up with that. I know what it's really like. So they were blessed. But anyways, they just wanted to create a victimhood thing kind of thing to justify. They told me my oldest son has 3 grandchildren that I know of. And he basically said, when you change your political views, then you can see your grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so sad that we've come to that where your children are like that. Your sister turned you into the FBI. Your children don't speak to you. You can't see your grandkids, all because of your political views. And then this is before January 6th.
So when January 6th happened, and then I have to go to prison, I had already become immune to what these people were trying to do to me, right?
Mhm.
They were trying to, my life had already been destroyed, and I'd already learned and recovered from it. I came real close to ending it all one time, to be honest with you. Very, very close. But, God saved me, right? And opened my eyes to, I'd always been dedicated to God, but not in the way that I have been since that day. And I learned a very precious lesson from when that happened, right? I'll be honest with you, like I was trying to figure out the best way to shoot myself, right?
Oh my God.
Well, my children just said they never want to talk to me again. It was,
John,
I could tell you the whole story in the past. I mean, I sacrificed so much for these kids, right? But irregardless.
Well, I'm going to say this here. I'm so glad that the Holy Spirit came upon you and saved you that day.
Yes.
Because it was him. It was him. But
I learned a very valuable lesson, and that is that you only have control over 2 things in life, and that is yourself and now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't focus on those things that you can control, you create anxiety and fear. And anxiety and fear is a resting place for darkness. It is a breeding ground for darkness. And, I can't even tell you, like, I'm just not upset about what happened to me. I mean, I'm not angry. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm hopeful, and I have faith that people will be held accountable, because none of this can be a coincidence. Everything that's happened, this is all for a reason. I have to believe that. Mm-hmm. And if you allow yourself to be angry, again, that's a breeding ground for darkness, right? I don't want to give it a home. I hated and all that for so long. and it was tearing me up, and it almost killed me, right? Because I wanted to hold on to all this negativity and stuff. And so by the time I got to prison, I had learned this lesson that, yes, this too shall pass, and the day is what I make of it. And what am I going to do today, right? I'm not going to focus on yesterday. I can't do nothing about it. The only if I want to focus on tomorrow, that's great, but the only way to affect it is by doing what I need to do today. And in prison, it is very simple and easy to be able to live in that kind of a way, because you're restricted from outside influences and all these things that can distract you and all these kinds of things. And there's lots of time for you to be able to read and do introspection, and it's just a simpler life, right? And so I was very well prepared for that. God did that for me, right? Like everything in my life that led up to what happened on January 6th, I can point to an event that prepared me for that, to be able to handle that with the grace that I feel that I did, And so while I was there, I focused on just trying to do as much good as I could. They give you jobs while you're in there. I think you earn like 35 cents supposedly an hour or something like that. I never got paid for it, but
we're in great competition with China, aren't we?
Oh yeah,
Aspect.
Yeah. And America's prisons are slave labor. That's a for real thing. I learned so much. Before I went into prison, I was like, oh yeah, those dirty criminals. I don't care if they don't eat and they have to do this and do that. Let them not have this and that. Da 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 da. Because I just thought everybody in prison was guilty. And then I went to prison, and there's a lot of innocent people in prison. Let me tell you. It's pretty frightening what our government has been doing for decades to our populace. They use the same kind of, it's not just January 6ers who have their rights, completely bulldozed, convicted of crimes that there's no evidence of them doing, but just because, they happen to know somebody, right? Just because you have an acquaintance that did, they call it conspiracy, and boom, you're in jail, even though there's no evidence of a crime, just because you knew a guy that committed a crime. That's what I got convicted for. The judge himself, during my sentencing, he said, well, Mr. Nassif's personal behavior was peaceful. That was the judge said that. Peaceful, passive, and then he said lawful. And then his next breath was, okay, 7 months. It was ridiculous.
They're making an example then out of you.
Oh, well, yeah,
right?
Just like with COVID, right? Just like with COVID, they want to make examples of these other people, scare you, keep you in your little box, keep you from speaking out against, authority. That's how slaves are created, right? Mm-hmm. They want us to be afraid to speak out. They did what they did to me and all my brothers and sisters that had to go through the same thing. They did that to us as a visual display to make sure that everybody else that's watching this that wasn't there and didn't have that happen to them never thinks about standing up against the corruption that we saw that day. They wanted to silence everybody else, and they were going to use us as a tool to be able to do that. But God bless, Donald J. Trump coming in with the pardon. I hope and I pray that there's a true investigation about what happened that day. There were 4 people that were murdered that day by cops. 4. Wasn't just Ashley Babbitt. There was 4. There was 2 gentlemen that were in the crowd when the police first opened fire. By the way, your audience should know that there literally is a thing called the Riot Act, right? I'm going to read you the Riot Act. The Riot Act basically says before you can open fire on a riot and do like non-lethal force and clear them out and start to violate their First Amendment rights and all those kinds of things, right? First, you have to announce to the crowd, this is an illegal gathering. You must disperse, and if you don't disperse, force will be used against you. That's a mandatory thing that the police are supposed to do. And DC cops, the Capitol Police, did not do that. They went ahead and just started shooting at people. They used non-lethal ammunition like flashbangs and gas grenades and rubber bullets. But rubber bullets are actually considered lethal when shot to the head. You're supposed to only shoot to the torso, and they were shooting people in the face. There's a very easy video to be able to find online. There's one gentleman went right through his cheek. It was just gory and awful. But two of the gentlemen, Benjamin Phillips and Kevin Greason, they ended up dying of heart attacks out in the crowd because flashbangs went off either like right on them or near them or whatever. And the concussion of it ended up killing them. Those were the first two casualties. Everybody
And
knows
what
about
was that like scared them into having a heart attack.
My understanding is that one of them got hit with a concussion grenade, and the concussion, the grenade on his chest caused his heart to, whatever, I don't know the technical term, but I guess it made him have a heart attack or something.
Okay.
But both of those guys died in the crowd. Ashley was shot. Everybody knows about that. But for me, not that any one of them is not a tragedy, but the one that is not spoken about the most and really needs to be spoken about the most is the death of Roseanne Boylan. Roseanne Boylan was murdered. She was beaten to death with a stick by a female cop. And a lot of the guys who went to prison and were given violent charges were people who were coming to her aid and trying to save her from the cops that were bludgeoning her to death. And there's video of people trying to give her, they're doing compressions, they're giving her CPR. And while they're trying to save her life, the cops are like spraying them with mace and hitting them in the head and just bludgeoning them. And they eventually dragged Roseanne Boylan's body into the tunnel, and they were so inept. Rather than save her life, when they broke out the defibrillator, they broke it, and it's all on police dash cam. All of this is public so far. So the cops ended up breaking the thing that would save her life. She gets declared dead. But the thing that upsets me the most about this, and hopefully will upset everybody in your audience the same, is that they went and they told her family and the public that she died of a drug overdose. And when a drug overdose. Here's video of her while she's on the ground, laying unconscious, being beat in the head with a stick. I mean, she was murdered, period. Period. And the worst part, if all of that there could be something worse, but there is. When her family came to claim the body, the government had cremated her, destroying all evidence. Our government, Joe Biden's government, cremated the body of a protester that they murdered, and the family members never got a chance to be able to know the truth about what happened.
Wow. But there is video. There's video of what happened to her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but have you don't know about it, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
People in the J6 community know about it because we share all this stuff and everything. Media doesn't show that stuff. Congress doesn't show it. Congress has all the tapes, right? Right. McCarthy swore, I'm going to release the video, right? He failed, so we tossed him out. And then this new guy comes in, Johnson, and he's just as much of a tool as the first guy. He's not stepping up to the plate. No. You know what I mean? We've got some serious problems in our country. The idea that just because you have an R next to your name, absolves you from responsibility for not stepping up and honoring your oath. That's a big problem we have in this country. We need to start. We need to start with ourselves first. There's a big lack of education. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll rant about my special personal issue. Do you remember when I talked about that?
I know you have a great historic point to make, and I will let you get into it. But tell me right now, being that we're talking January 6th, before we go into that aspect of it, what would you say to President Trump right now if you had the ability to say something to him about the pardons and what's happened in this country with all of this?
I would just say one word. Well, two, 4 words. There must be accountability. I was just going to say accountability, but no, there must be accountability. We cannot listen. The Epstein thing.
Mm-hmm.
We need accountability. Russia, Russia, Russia. We need accountability. The obvious fraud that took place in the 2020 election and thereafter. We need accountability. Act Blue and their money laundering scheme. We need accountability. We don't need Pam Bondi on her 15th press conference of the day, having another. Let's focus on. I'm hoping that I'm skeptical, as many people are, right? Because we've been stabbed in the back, let down by so many people in the past, right? All I care about is accountability. I didn't even want my pardon. I don't care about my pardon. So long as the people who actually did wrong have accountability. I was willing to take that for the team because I was there standing for what was right. I was right in my defense of my innocence. Every single one of the charges put against me was a bogus lie. They had no evidence. They put an FBI officer who never even spoke to me or anything, giving evidence about what my state of mind and stuff was. Like, it was crazy. You're supposed to be able to prove beyond a reasonable suspicion or whatever. And these people didn't even put any evidence in there. They just wanted to reinterpret the video they were watching. Anyways, listen, those people did that. Look what's going on with Doge. It's all connected, right? I was, I've been blessed. I've been like at the forefront of so many of these movements going on. I was at the very first Tea Party rally in Orlando. Pete Santilli did his little rant on the floor. Back then, there was chat rooms that you would be in, and we were like in a chat room. We're like, hey, we ought to do this. I was at the first Tea Party. I was a Tea Party person right from the get-go. I was retweeted by Q. Anybody who's ever followed Q, there's a post where I got I followed Q. Listen, Q brought out all this NGO nonsense long ago. This isn't a surprise to any of us who paid attention to that, because he mapped out the corruption way back then, years ago. When you take that and the election and all that into, listen, they're going to do anything they can to protect their power, right? Anything. They'll cheat, lie, steal, kill. I have no doubt that they do those things.
Oh God, yeah.
They'll send innocent people to prison. They don't care.
They don't care.
Their lust for power is just so intense. It overrules everything else. Look at the crazy people doing what they're doing now with the Teslas and everything. You know what I mean?
Insanity that we're seeing now.
But it's par for the course.
Yeah.
For that ideology, because it's totalitarian in nature, it refuses there to be compromise or anything else other than their way. That's why if you don't agree with them, you hate them, right? Because that's how they think, right? They're projecting themselves onto you. And, so these people are just so lost, and it's sad. And it's unfortunate. I don't know how we're that 27% of the country that seems to be, perpetually lost in their own psychosis. I don't know how we ever, get them to rejoin the rest of the normal human race, except for with love and understanding, and just understand that, it's kind of like when you have a 3-year-old throwing a tantrum, sometimes it's best to just let them do their thing. Sometimes you gotta grab them and hold them. Sometimes you have to throw yourself on the floor and do a tantrum in front of them to show them what they look like.
Yeah. Wow.
But whatever you do, you got to do it from love. You can't yell at them. That doesn't help the situation. They They can't.
They can't hear.
No.
They can't. And when I look at this and I see what's actually happening, and we're looking at this, I mean, people are actually justifying this. They're coming up with excuses as to why this destruction of Elon's of property is okay. I mean, how do you even do this? Is an act of terrorism. I mean, people are afraid. I was on X the other night in a Twitter space, and people were taught, it was a space about Tesla and the destruction that's happening, and there were people in the room that were talking about they drive Teslas and how they are literally not driving their cars. There was a woman who was literally attacked as she was driving. Somebody pulled up next to her, called her a Nazi. Like, wow. People are in their cars with their children, and people are insane. Yeah. They're they're over the top. Because why? Because somebody drives a Tesla and you want to do that? They're crazy. And people are literally coming out here and making excuse, like the news pundits on the other side. Like I listened to one the other day. They're literally making excuses as to why this is okay. Like, oh yeah, it's okay. It's not that bad. No, this is horrible. You don't do that.
But it's not new. It's not new. I mean, yeah. Every act of political violence is from the left towards, other people. I mean, it always has been. You won't see, I hate the title Republican or conservative. You won't see a constitutionalist, someone who believes in individual liberty, right? You won't see somebody like that who, classifies and judges and puts people into boxes and stuff like that, because that's counter to their nature. I don't see people as groups, right? You have to judge each person based off the merits. Just because somebody, looks like you, sounds like you, smells like you. It's like it doesn't mean they're you. You know what I mean? Look, we're all individuals, and thank God nobody's like me, because then the world would really be in trouble. But but that the whole. I understand that it's human nature, right? The whole otherness thing, right? Right. We're kind of hardwired, as babies, right? To, pattern recognition. We know who the friendly people are, and then the stranger comes along and we cry, and, it's a little hardwired into us, but, love is learned, it's not necessarily, because, we're made up of both light and dark. And sometimes our dark nature likes to rule the day because it makes us feel better and it's easier. Wow. But that's not where we want to be as people, right? And you talk to the people on the left, they describe their utopia, right? And it's basically, small government. They basically, if you talk to a leftist about what their ideal utopia of how the world should run or whatever, right? They basically describe everything as being conservative, with the exception of they don't ever have to do anything. Somebody takes care of them, right? They want all the liberty and all that kind of stuff that comes with freedom. Yeah. Yes. But they don't want any of the responsibility that goes with it. And instead, they want to outsource their humanity to a governmental, bureau or agency to, actually do what they should be doing in the first place, right? And back in the 60s, all you need is love. Love was a big thing back in the 60s, and we're all trying to embrace the love and everything. And then somehow that got distorted. And well, if you want to love people, then the government should give them things. But love is actually created when one person is interacting with another person and doing something either out of kindness or generosity, and they're doing something, love and goodness is a tangible, real thing, just like evil and darkness is. Anybody who's been on the internet and has watched a kitten being rescued from a drain, and there's 4 grown men all, spending 12 hours trying to get to the little kitten, right? Or, you see these little videos where people do something nice for people, and and you feel it. You feel it in your heart. You know it's real because it has a physical manifestation in your body, right? And it's that moment when love is created, and it affects not only the giver, right, but the receiver as well, and the people who witness it around them. It has a power all of its own. But these people want to outsource their humanity and have a bureau or agency be able to do that. And there's no love created when you send a check to somebody or you enable somebody to stay within, their own issues, right? And so it ends up being the complete opposite of what they wanted to do. They wanted to show love, and really what they did was they enslaved that person and belittled them, right? When they really they more importantly, they deprived themselves of the opportunity to be able to have that love in their lives. So, we need to cast off the idea that somebody needs to take care of us, and then we as people need to step up and help people. I love watching those. I know I ramble a lot. You just tell me shut up if I'm
It's okay.
right. I love watching those TikTok and YouTube videos where there's a guy that SB Bowling. I throw out a little shout to him. I follow him. What he does is he has a landscaping business, and he made it a habit. I made a YouTube channel. He would find overgrown properties, people where they're elderly and whatever, and they're being neglected. And he goes and he cleans up the yard for free. We're talking 4-foot high grass and stuff, right? It's really so nice to watch. But every time I watch it, right, I always think to myself, where were the neighbors? Why didn't that next door neighbor just run his lawnmower, right, or her lawnmower for an extra 15, 20 minutes, and the neighbor on the other side could do it themselves? Why does it take a stranger to come out and go do this? Why are people, stuck in their little holes? And why did this person's lawn have to get so awful in the first place? Where's that human compassion? But we outsource it. What do people do instead nowadays? They call the homeowners association, or they call the city. This is an eyesore. You need to do something about it. Well, maybe something's going on in that person's life. Maybe you should reach out and see what you can do to help out, but we don't think like that. We want somebody else to take care of it. And as a result, love doesn't get created, and instead all kinds of negative emotions are generated instead. So we've got a lot to learn as individuals, as people, and stop expecting somebody to come and save us, because we're the only ones who can save us.
Yeah. And I'll just throw this in there while we were talking about, people giving you things. So as we know, the word says, if you can teach somebody how to fish, right, they will eat forever. They won't be hungry. But if you give it to them, then guess what? You got to keep giving it to them. So just like these government checks, they will have to continue to give and give and give and give and give. And when does it all end?
Right.
It just never ends, because they've enabled these people to be just relying on the government for everything, and instead of learning how to bring in and do for themselves. So with that being said, give us our history lesson, so you can give us that information.
All right, so this is the thing I wish everybody would talk to their representatives, their senators about. Just always ask about this. Look, we've got a lot of problems in the United States. And there's a lot of people throwing a lot of Band-Aid solutions to symptoms of what the real problem is. But the real problem with our country, the core root of where all of this comes from, some would say it's from when the Fed was instituted back in Woodrow Wilson's. Oh, by the way, Woodrow Wilson, worst president of the United States. Sorry, he was the worst one. That's a conversation for another time.
Worse than Joe Biden.
Oh, he's way worse than, because Joe Biden wasn't the president.
Well, that's true too. That is true.
Yeah, no, Woodrow Wilson with FDR is a close second. So there's a pivotal moment that really changed the structure of our government that happened at the beginning of the 20th century in 1933, I think it was. FDR had been in office. He was trying to get his New Deal done. for those that don't know, FDR was a fascist by a different name, but all his policies were identical to other well-known fascists. We won't mention their names because we don't like to be like liberals. But so he's trying to get all this stuff passed, and this might seem a little reminiscent of what's going on today, but the Supreme Court kept on saying, nope, unconstitutional, nope, unconstitutional, nope, unconstitutional. So FDR says, listen, I'm pretty sick and tired of this. I want to get done what my agenda is, and you're not letting me. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pack the Supreme Court. I'm going to pack it with people who are going to do my bidding. So I'm just going to basically dilute your power, get what I want, right? And or you can play ball. And then the Supreme Court decided to play ball. And they changed the definition of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. So Article 1 sets up how the legislature works. Article 2 is the executive. Article 3, I believe, is the judiciary. Article 1, Section 8 is what's called the Enumerated Powers Clause. In there, because remember, we're supposed to have a limited government with finite, specified finite power. The gentlemen who helped form this great, wonderful nation of ours were scared to death of people who lusted for power, and they did everything they could in the construction of that Constitution to be able to diffuse and keep power unconcentrated. And one of the key things to that was giving very strict and specific instructions to Congress on what their purpose was. And that is Article 1, Section 8. And in Article 1, Section 8, it lists, I think it's 16 or 18 specific duties or areas of concern that the Congress has power over. Most of those actions that they're supposed to be doing have been outsourced to the Federal Reserve. They don't even do it anymore. The thing that changed was the beginning paragraph that opens up Article 1, Section 8. And basically what that states, just to kind of put it succinctly, is that the Congress has the ability to be able to raise taxes, pay for the debts. And in there, it says, it's allowed to do these things for the general welfare of the country. Now, anybody who's paid any attention to U.S. history and how we were formed, the states all hated each other when they were colonies. I mean, Virginia hated New York, Pennsylvania hated, the Carolinas. Everybody hated Massachusetts. I can say that because that's where I'm from. But it's true. Nobody liked Massachusetts back then, right? They were all suspicious of the Virginians and the New Yorkers because, power and size and all that kind of stuff. And so the idea is that if the federal government was going to be given power to do things for the nation, that it needed to be for the general welfare, meaning that you can't play favorites with Virginia. You can't do something for Virginia that you're not going to do for New York. It has to be for everybody. It needs to be for the general welfare. That's what the original meaning of general welfare meant. But in 1933, they twisted that. They said general welfare just meant the general well-being, so that Congress could do whatever it wanted to do so long as Congress thought it was good for the people. And then they're the ones who get to determine what's good for the people. Mm-hmm. That's a totalitarian government, right? That is power to the state. And it completely strips any restrictions off the federal government from staying within the lane that Congress was supposed to do. And as a result, you have the hundreds of agencies and all these things that are going on. 90% of what the federal government does is unconstitutional. It's just not part of the Constitution. And but that general welfare clause, that along with there was a second court case where they redid the whole Commerce Clause, which further expanded federal overreach. We need to demand of our representatives that we return the Constitution back to its original meaning. We don't have to have an amendment. We don't need to have all kinds of new laws. No, what we need to do is return back to the basics. I've been in management and leadership pretty much my whole adult life. I was in the military as a staff sergeant. When you have a team that's not performing, you return to the basics, right? What was that classic basketball movie, right? Hoosiers, right? Hoosiers. And then, I don't know if you ever watched that movie. That was a real popular motivational thing that they would do at corporate retreats and stuff. But in Hoosiers, basically, he goes into a basketball town and he makes them all get back to the basics. And, everybody's freaking out about it until it pays off, right? That's what we need to do as a country, right? Re-examine, relearn, right? Unlearn everything we've learned over the last 120 years. Relearn what it means to live by the Constitution, and return the Constitution to what it originally means. Because without all that excess power that they gain from that corrupt reading of the General Welfare Clause, there's no influence to peddle. Therefore, no corruption, right? Influence is a product. You get influence by having power. If Congress was restricted to just what the General Welfare Clause was, they wouldn't have that power. And therefore, they wouldn't have the ability and the influence to be able to sell to, globalists and stuff like that. It solves our corruption problem. It solves so many of the local problems. And it'll make decision-making come back to the states and the local, which forces all of us to start stepping up and being more responsible for ourselves, right? And expecting some overlord to, somehow map out our world that where it's going to be, peaches and honey and stuff. It's just not realistic. Anyways, that's my little rant. Article 1, Section 8, return the General Welfare Clause back to the original meaning. Don't pass a whole bunch of stuff. One thing solves 90%. That's all we got to do. Solve a problem, you have to go to the root of the problem, not focus on the symptoms.
So they just took it out? Did they cross it out? What did they do to remove it from general welfare to?
They made a judicial ruling, kind of like how these guys are doing their TROs, the temporary restraining orders, in order to act like they actually have executive power. These guys basically said, oh yeah, well, we're reading this, and yeah, no, general welfare to us doesn't mean, the whole non-favoritism thing. No, what it means is that Congress can do whatever it wants so long as it's for the good of the people, and they get to determine what's for the good of the people. It's in their decision, right? So when you read the SCOTUS decision, they basically redefine the General Welfare Clause as they explain why they did what they did. It's really nauseating.
So is that something President Trump can take care of?
I'm not sure what the remedy would be. I think what needs to happen is the AG, the Department of Justice, needs to file a case at the U.S. Supreme Court to push the issue and cause the U.S. Supreme Court to re-examine that decision and overturn the decision. The only, we have such a. I'm glad what's going on with the judges right now is starting to happen, because a lot of people are starting to see a part of our government that they didn't realize what it was. One of the other big problems that we have is that our court system follows the whole, I forget what they call it, when they set a precedent, right? So if one court does something, it creates a precedent, and then every case thereafter has to follow that precedent, okay? Sounds good in theory. The problem is you have a judge who comes up with his answer, and it's 1 degree off from the Constitution, right? So the next guy starts one degree off from the Constitution. Right. He makes another decision, right? So over 250 years, this happens. This guy makes a decision. It's always one degree off. Next thing you know, if you've ever used a compass and done any kind of navigating with a compass, right?
Yeah.
5 degrees is a pretty big deal over a large period of time. Next thing you know, you're over here, right? And now all of a sudden, we ignore the Constitution because of the precedent. Like, there's something that's kind of like what happened with Roe v. Wade, right? Roe v. Wade was like that for so many years, right? They wanted to ignore the fact that it didn't exist in the Constitution, and it was a state's issue, and the 10th Amendment is what reigned supreme in the issue. And it took a brave judiciary to then come in and say, you know what? No, that's interpreting everything incorrectly. This doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to solve the problem. Whether or not our Supreme Court is up for the task, that I don't think people would really appreciate what I'm suggesting and how extreme it would be, because we're not used to living life like that. People aren't used to living free, and they're used to being told what to do, and they feel safe and comfortable in it. You know? They feel safe and comfortable in the tyranny that they've created for themselves. So it'd be a major step for us as a country to really embrace that. But it's got to be done, because I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Wow.
And I mean that wholeheartedly. Give me liberty or give me death. I don't want to live a slave to nobody.
That's right.
That's one of the reasons why I wouldn't take the plea. I was like, I won't say what I was saying, but I was like, F you, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah. It was the very first words out of my mouth when I met my attorney. I said, no pleas, no plea deals, 0. Because listen, when you plead to a crime that you didn't commit, you're actually committing a felony, right? So because you have to lie under oath and create perjury, right? You have to commit perjury. These folks wanted me to commit perjury, right? So that they could make some kind of political statement. Look at all the people that pled guilty. They pled guilty, so they must be guilty. That's not the way it works. They're saying you're going to prison for 20 years, right? Or you can lie and say you did this, right? And only get probation or maybe a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
Who in their right mind is going to say no? Well,
right. You did.
Not necessarily in my right mind, but but there was a bunch of us. It was a principle thing for me. Listen, I rose my right hand on more than one occasion and swore an oath to the United States Constitution. I was willing to put everything on the line for that. I'll be damned if I'm going to get frightened by some pencil neck in a suit who wants to misinterpret the Constitution and be a tyrant and try and ruin my life. I'm not going to let him. You know what I mean? Did I get hurt financially? Bad, right? Did I get affected with my relationships? Yes, but you know what? There's a blessing in it, because I will tell you, having something like what just happened to me and all of us, you know who your real friends are. And I had people get so close to me, people who write me letters in prison and stuff, people who before I really hadn't connected with, and the amount of just love and compassion for people who were originally acquaintances who then became friends, right? And real friends, because real friends are the people who stand through you, stand with you through the turmoil and stuff. And from that perspective, it was a blessing, because I got to see who was who. I had a lot of hangers on who really kind of had a good game at their deception there. But boy, I'll tell you what, when they don't write you in prison, you know where their head's really at, where their heart's really at. You know what I mean? Wow. But it was good to know that, though, because I don't want to waste a single moment's energy on things either I can't control or that work negatively, against me. So the whole thing was a blessing.
The good book says everything works together for good, right? And what happened to you, John? You made lemonade out of it. You were in there, you helped people, you were able to, survive. And look at you now. God is really using you and your story to really wake people up, because that's what we need. We need to be woken up. And these people that's already off that cliff, these leftists who they need to be waking up too. And I'm glad you're saying, that we need to pray for these people. because they're really, really lost. So
Yeah.
thank you very much, John. Any last words? And then we're going to wrap it up.
If you have the ability to write someone in prison, write them. If you have the ability to do anything good for a neighbor, someone that you don't know, do it. Don't advertise it. You don't have to video it. Create some love in the world, and there'll be more love around you. That's all I have to say.
Wow, that is very nice. That's great advice, and thank you for it, John. Thank you very much. I hope that the rest of your days is going to be blessed, that God is really going to have his hand on you, and I'm hoping that you will document this journey and have a physical book so that we can go through that and really understand a lot of the things that's currently running in your brain and your mind. So hopefully that'll come soon.
Yeah,
Okay?
I got to figure out how to do that. I've been working on that for a little bit.
Okay, good. All right, John, thank you very much. I'm going to pull you off the screen, and I'm going to say God bless and keep you, and I'll see you again.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. All right, bye-bye. Oh, tell them where they can follow you. I know you're on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm on X. I had a hard time relearning that when I got out.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I'm on X. It's at Big John Nassif. You can see my.
Yep, there's your
right there.
John Nassif.
At Big John Nassif, Nassif. I'm on Facebook, but I'm incognito there because technically I got banned from Facebook for life the day after I got arrested. So, yeah. Well. But I'm on there as John Galt.
Okay.
And I'm on YouTube, I believe, as Big John Nassif as well. If not Big John Nassif, then John Nassif. So either way, I don't hide behind pseudonyms or anything. Real easy to be able to find me.
All right.
Yeah, but I'm on X a lot. So
yeah, that's the battleground.
Indeed.
That is the battleground. So I will see you on the battleground.
Awesome. Thanks, Amania.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. Well, guys, that was John Nassif. Thank you so much. Again, he was great. January 6er survived it. He is doing some great work, and go check him out on his Twitter, his Facebook, and on YouTube. So we're going to say goodnight. Thank you very much. God bless and keep. Don't forget to like, share this live stream, and also don't forget to go to the OrlandoPatriot.com where you can get your merch. I'm going to throw up my little video there. God bless you and keep you, and I will see you in another video.